In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Today we are going to dig in a little bit into the dynamic world of AI and how we should be approaching custom GPTs and what the agent world looks like and how AI is starting to impact job roles and what we can do to future-proof the job roles that we're in. And my guest today is Brian Childress, who has been on the forefront of technology for a couple of decades now as a fractional CTO and as an investor in technology and a technical advisor. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Emanuel, it's great to be here.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking time this morning to talk about what's happening today in AI, because I don't know about you, but I feel like it is so dynamic that some days I wake up and I'm like, I'm just going to stop worrying about it because I can't even keep up with what's changing.
I'm right there with you. I've definitely looked at, buying a nice farm, piece of property somewhere and just, living off the land, getting out of this crazy tech world.
Well, I mean, you've had a pretty good run here as a technical advisor and as a technologist. What are you seeing in terms of where your clients are in adoption and their temperature on the pace of change?
Yeah, I think for most of my clients, they know that AI is a big thing and that we need to adopt it. We're just not really sure how. And I think that's one of the challenges that I see a lot is we see this amazing solution and we're trying to figure out which problem we should solve.
Right.
I think for some clients, they want to, solve the world and they want to replace their entire development team because those, it's a super expensive line item. And for others, they want to figure out how to use AI to just supercharge and change their workflows and everything that they do day to day. And there's just a lot of confusion around what tools should I use? How should I use it? What's the security like? Am I putting my company, my business, my data at risk? And those are a lot of the questions that I get asked from the founders I work with every day.
Yeah, well, those are all good questions. And I think we're all kind of in that space of like, hey, here's this great tool, and what do I do with it, right? Like, I ask that a lot, and we're getting just bombarded by new offers at this point, and so some of it is you got to go back and say, this is what my recommendation is, what are we not good at? What don't we have staff for? What's really expensive, right? Like those questions to then start to identify and find tools.
You're absolutely right. And if I could, I'd add one more question to that I'm asking myself and my clients is like, what is a task that I would normally go and hire somebody for, right? If we, instead of putting out a job posting or starting to talk with consultants, maybe that's something that I can leverage an AI tool or a series of tools to be able to replace that, everywhere from tax advice to legal advice. That might be somebody that I can replace and then, work with somebody that's experienced, but the leg work is done by some of these tools that are out there.
Yeah, I love that. We'll dig into that a little bit too. I'm interested to know about the security and safeguarding IP, and if, besides just air gapping a GPT, is there middleware where I can SSL or encrypt my IP before I push it into some kind of a LLM and keep things safe?
Well, I think if I understand correctly, the question you're asking is mostly in when I send my, very sensitive intellectual property over to one of these GPTs, is there a chance that it could get intercepted? And really, that's unlikely. Just the way that things are set up with, SSL and other encryption algorithms. I think the concern most of the time is more like once I give one of these GPTs all of my information, they just got the entire transcript from my last call with a client. Now it's there. It's over in that side. It's owned. It's available to that GPT, and potentially my information can be used for retraining of future models. Really, I think that's the biggest concern that a lot of my clients and folks that I talk to are concerned about is once I hand this over, like who owns it now? And certain GPTs that we interact with do have ways to say, hey, don't use my data in the future for future training purposes. And that's kind of the very first step. I think it's also really important to look at the GPTs that we're using and some of their practices around data security and data governance. And I think if I were to look into my crystal ball, we're going to see a shift from using these publicly available GPTs to something that's more managed and controlled by an organization, unless I'm going to send all of my information to this, public thing that I don't really have a lot of insight into.
Yeah, kind of, I guess more in the model of we'll have our own GPTs, and then we'll get pushed updates on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, right? So that it's current and up to date, but it's a one-way street rather than a two-way street.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then, what are you recommending now? Like, say you have a small regional credit union. What are you going to tell that group in terms of what they do and don't put into an LLM?
Yeah, this is kind of a tricky thing because we want to see the adoption of some of these tools, and we want our employees and our coworkers to be using these tools and kind of figuring out what the bounds are. But we also want to make sure that we're safeguarding our data. And so really where I'm looking to is like, well, be very careful. We don't want to send customer data to any of these systems. We don't control it. We don't understand how they work necessarily. But if there are things that I can do, I can help with, creating email copy. If I can help with a lot of these other tasks that I'm doing that don't touch customer data and don't touch sensitive areas of the business, then that's a great way for us to start to leverage these tools. And again, finding what the bounds are of those tools without putting the business and our customers at risk. There's a lot of administrative type tasks that we can automate and we can simplify with these tools in a way that really starts to give us an understanding of what the capabilities are.
Yeah, I like that, and I agree. I think it's a department by department application at this point, right? And it's we're really built right now for marketing and generating good marketing or better marketing. And we do have the chance to review what our competition is doing in a lot of ways because it's kind of a free flow of information.
Right, we should take full advantage of that, that information, just ecosystem and tap right into it.
So that's interesting. I guess automation is the big push right now. We're seeing it from OpenAI and a lot of the big players. Obviously, there's tons of products and services that are coming out. What are you seeing in terms of real world, actual valuable automation and agentic AI or bots that you're seeing at the business level?
Really, I'm seeing a lot of adoption for, again, those very repetitive tasks where typically I would have a human doing it. And then, once that human starts to get really good at it, we add additional tasks to that person. And then, things fall by the wayside. I can give you a simple example, right? I might have an assistant go through my calendar and pull together meeting notes and preparation for each of my meetings every day. Right. And I would have somebody do that ahead of time, maybe send me a simple Google Doc with all of that information. So I'm ready to go. I can now create an agent that can do exactly that for me. and they could do a much better job because now they can go and use different tools, right? They can do LinkedIn research for a particular person that I'm going to be talking with later today, and really pull all of that information together. Where if I had somebody doing that manually, it might start to see some drift, might see a decrease in the quality or the consistency. That's a perfect place where I can now have that human doing much more impactful tasks instead of repetitive, more administrative type tasks.
Yeah, I love that. Now, for people like us who are not super tech savvy, we're using tools like Make and then there's some other high level kind of agent softwares. What are you recommending that, or what are you deploying for your clients?
Yeah, make.com is a great one. We use a lot of Zapier for different
Sure.
integrations and passing
Yep.
information around. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things like if I wake up in the morning, there's going to be 10 more tools that I need to take a look at and evaluate.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
whatever I say now is going to be out of date tomorrow. I think it's important to play around with a lot of these tools and really take it back and like, what are the tasks that I'm doing right now? Or what are the tasks that I'm having others in my organization do right now that potentially could be replaced? And let me try to replace them. Let me spend a couple hours in playing around with these different tools and seeing how it works. It's very likely that if we choose a tool today, it's probably not going to stay with us for the long term. But I think the concepts will, and that adoption of that automation is really what I'm looking for as I look at different platforms that are out there.
Yeah, and I agree. And for those of us who are running businesses versus being the tech help, what I'm doing is I'm designating certain projects, like certain reporting functions that are just grueling for the humans to do, or things that are super expensive. Kind of back to how do we apply these things, and those are two of the ways that we're doing it. Now, one of the things I'm seeing is that content development is getting automated, and the Claude is a great business writing tool. That's kind of where a lot of us in the marketing world have landed, is on Claude, and so that's changing the way that we work. What are you seeing in the IT department or on the tech side as far as how work's changing and what kind of job functions are happening now that maybe in a year will have morphed because of these tools?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of my focus is in software engineering and software architecture, right? My background is designing and building and scaling, large software platforms and SaaS platforms, and I think there's a lot of evolution that's going to happen there. The role of the software engineer, I think, is going to evolve and change. A lot of folks are worried that it's going to go away, and I don't think that necessarily that's the case, but it's certainly going to evolve. And most software engineers, instead of being an individual contributor that receives a set of tasks that they work on, I really think that in the very near future, that each software engineer is going to have almost a small team of digital assistants next to them, right? These AI agents that are going to be doing a lot of the tasks. They may be doing research, they may be doing creating documentation, the things that developers have to do but don't love doing, which means that they don't do an amazing job. A lot of those tasks are great for these AI tools. Even generating code. A lot of us in the software engineering realm think that the code that we generate, that's the work. It's like, really, no. The thing that we're doing is solving a problem. And so as humans, we're really good at solving problems. And if I can now direct some of these tools to actually do the solutioning or the code creation, then that unlocks me to continue to be very creative. And I don't have to do the grueling work sometimes of creating the code that makes the solution.
Well, it's interesting that, I agree. I kind of think that most professionals are going to have this little suite of AI agents helping do exactly these things that we're talking about, right? Like this idea of all the meeting prep and review, even like code. I've talked to some of the guys who are code writers. Like, I wrote code while I was driving. By the time I got to the office, I looked at it. It was 70% work. What would you normally be a 10-hour project for me was a 2-hour project. And And so if, as we continue to build these tools, uh, I think a lot of work is going to be time shifted like that too.
You're absolutely right. And it's mind-boggling to think that, something that would normally take me a couple days with, very well-pointed questions and prompts, I can get done in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I did some experiments last week and it was exactly that. And, it's 80% of the way there, 90% of the way there, but it saved me many, many days worth of work that I didn't have to do. And now I get to go in and critique and tweak and just improve that and not doing the grunt work, if you will. Which for me, that was just blew me away. And, the fact that today is the worst that these tools are going to be, right? Tomorrow
Right.
is only going to continue to improve.
Now, how are you implementing custom GPTs for your clients? I mean, we're doing a lot of that now, where we want to build these repositories of knowledge so that it's accessible for everybody on the team. Is that something that's happening in your departments too?
Yeah, absolutely. We're still, I think, in the exploratory phase of, okay, what do I want this GPT to do? And for me, I've been doing everything from taking past transcripts from calls and podcast recordings and pulling that into a GPT. And it's like, what would Brian say about this? And so
Right.
instead of just asking a broad question, I ask the question in the context of maybe I've already answered some of these in a different way. And it's giving me back, an answer in my language, which then makes it a lot easier for me to then take and turn that into content or responses to communications, whatever it may be.
Yeah. That's cool. I think that's really the brilliance of it. I mean, we're doing the similar things for each client. So there's everything, all the content we develop is on brand, on voice, based on success from the past. And it really creates this black box that allows us to be creative in the future rather than having to review all the past work. Well, that's, I guess, where do you see things going in the next 6 months or so? What's on your focus list in terms of implementation?
Yeah, I think for me, it's really a big focus on how do we shift the way we work to start to leverage some of these AI agents, all right, and becoming more of a digital colleague that I can start to ask questions of or assign tasks to. And I think we're going to see a huge shift there. We're going to see additional integrations with other platforms. So instead of me logging into a user interface, my agent is now calling on that API, for example. I think that's going to be where I'll see a lot of the shift, especially from taking a very technological heavy focus.
Yeah, I think the agents are the thing I'm most excited about right now, and really getting them so that there's a user experience that and kind of what we call an average professional could be able to interact with and connect, right? Where we're not trying to connect a Zap or API things together, but they just go in the dashboard, ask it to do what it needs to do, and then it starts to produce work. I think that's exciting. What's cool? What sort of clients are you working with right now? What's in your current workflow?
So most of the clients that I work with are in the B2B space. They have a software platform that they've built and they're looking to scale. So I'm working with everywhere from a marketplace to sales-focused software that helps sales folks do their job much, much better. Very AI focused, a lot of automations and a lot of magic happening under the hood there. Email marketing, doing a lot in that space as well. Getting the platform ready to really interact and be valuable for a lot of these AI agents as they start to come online. So a really good mix of different platforms.
Awesome. That's exciting. Well, I really appreciate you taking time today to have a talk with me. If people are interested in having a conversation with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. Most active over there, Brian Childress. I encourage anyone to reach out, connect, send me a message, and I'm happy to chat.
All right. Well, that's awesome, Brian. Thanks. Hang out for a second. Let me wrap this up, and we'll check in. All right. Thanks, Brian. Well, it's a good overview, and it's some really awesome reminders that stay focused on what are the challenges in the business, finding things that are repetitive and not fun for the humans to do, and find an agentic solution for some of your projects so that you can get off and do something that is much more creative and enjoyable, or even take some time off. Thanks for joining me today on Marketing in the Age of AI.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.